Hello and welcome to another episode of Raw Chatter. I am your host speaking, Vicky Midwood, the Human Health Optimizer and Addiction Eliminator. And today I have got one of our few male guests with us. Lewis and I met actually through a networking event where I heard him make some comments and speak in a very passionate, confident, and eloquent way about the digital arena and marketing. And so my ears pricked up and I decided I wanted to get to know him a little bit better. We had a great conversation, didn't we, Lewis? Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, yeah. Eloquently, I don't know about that, but I like to think I speak with passion. That I'll give you that one.
Yeah.
I find a lot of passion in what I do. So yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we had a great conversation, and I don't know, I for better or worse, I opened up to you about a few things I have a feeling we're going to discuss.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
shortly.
And then this is where when we meet at networking events, we kind of know people by the titles and the topics that they talk about. And it takes a little bit of getting to understand somebody to get them to open up about what their real story is and what their journey's been. And you had to share with me something that I would never have expected. And the reason that I introduced as I did was because that confidence and that ability for you to answer questions that you weren't prompted with, it was very much on the spot. And the answers that you came back with, I was just like, wow. So when you shared that you suffered from self-doubt, or what we kind of class as imposter syndrome, kind of really surprised me. So that's what you're going to be sharing with us about today. So do you want to let the listeners and the viewers know how you even recognized that that was what you were struggling with, and just tell us the background to it?
So I recognized I was struggling with it for one reason, and it was that I'm very open about a lot of aspects of my life. I think again that's where a bit of that confidence comes from. There's no real hidden agendas or anything with me. I say it how I see it. I am who I am, and yet for some reason I noticed a few years into being in business that I never mentioned my degree. It was something that it was like I don't even know how to describe it. It was just something that I didn't even consciously think of and go, okay, well, I'm not going to mention my degree because I don't want that to be embarrassing, or I don't want that to be something that I get judged by. It wasn't that at all. I just noticed eventually that I told someone what my degree was once, and they were completely shocked. I think almost like you were, and I will reveal it in a second.
Yeah.
And it was that I thought I'd told them,
Right.
and I realised I hadn't at all. And I'd known this person for a good while, and I was like, wow, I'd never told you that. And then I noticed in other situations, it was quite a glass shattering moment that I'd noticed this. And then when I asked other people and I found it coming up in conversation more often, they didn't know either. And so without trying to at all, I'd completely bypassed that entire part of my life, which is now something that I look back on and go, that was such an important part. And the degree was none other than musical theatre. I often describe it as music and musical theatre, which isn't correct. Again, that might be a self-doubt thing, but there is a genuine place that that's coming from. And
Right.
that's my primary interest in the degree was in the music rather
Right.
than the dancing around and
Right.
and acting side of it. I was really fascinated by the musical element, how musical theatre composers and other composers alike tell stories through music, which is probably fitting that I then moved into marketing, where I went, oh, I love storytelling through marketing. I'm loving that. So there's definitely parallels there. But yeah, it was something that I just realized one day that I didn't tell anyone. And then I think one of the most eye-opening moments for me was I went to a panel event in central Manchester, and there was a gentleman on the panel. I'm sure he won't mind me name dropping him. Giles Harridge was his name. He's a really, really good friend of mine now. And he, in his intro, when he was introducing himself to a room full of people, many of them I knew to be successful within the Manchester business ecosystem, etc. And he started off and just went, I didn't start in business. I started with a music degree. And I suddenly thought, wow. And when he explained all the things he'd done in his life and all the success he'd had in business throughout the rest of his intro, and then proceeded to show his expertise and confidence throughout the rest of the panel event, I just kept going back to the first thing that he'd said, which was my degree was in music. And I thought, wow, that's finally someone I can look at and go, I want to be where he is and have that confidence to just go, yeah, that was my degree. You're probably all out here with business degrees, law degrees, all of that. Mine's a music degree. I'm an arts guy, and I don't mind. And this is me. And just to finish that story, it was that it got to the end of the panel and it came to the Q&A section. And I asked him, how do you get so much confidence out of the degree you have? How have you dealt with that as a fellow arts degree graduate? And he said he'd struggled with it as well. It was something that he'd struggled with as well, until he was able to realize all the things that it had given him that other people didn't have.
Right.
A level of creativity, a way of seeing things that music's one of the few ways that you can channel that. And one of the only places you can learn that. And it made me realize that a lot of my confidence when it comes to speaking to people, when it comes to being put on the spot, it comes from the confidence I've gained through music, which is that if I'm asked a question on the spot, that's a hell of a lot easier than improvising in a band, because when I'm stood on a stage in front of people, something I still do to this day, I'm still a performer. I still have my own solo gigs that I do. I had one this last weekend. I had one the weekend before that, just me and my guitar. And when I've got a piano in front of me, for example, there's 88 keys on a piano, and at any one time, only a handful of them might be the right keys.
Yeah.
And if I deal with the pressure of hitting the right notes at the right time, then translating that into improvised playing as well, where I don't know what the right notes are, I've just got to find them. Then, unless I'm playing jazz where they're all the right notes. And it made me realize, well, if I can do that, talking to people is easy.
Yeah,
like just having a conversation with people and being open and being confident is a walk in the park when you've dealt with the pressures of performing music.
Amazing story. And what struck me was that you weren't consciously not mentioning the degree, but I think there must have been an unconscious thought process that because what you're doing seems to not be in any way connected to the degree that you had, this belief that people are going to judge or have expectations that you've come from a business background, that you just don't think it's relevant and therefore don't mention it. But then, as you said, because you heard somebody share that story and then you asked that really poignant question, it's allowed you to then recognize just how well it has served you to be as confident. And as I say, that's what struck me when I first saw you, because I'd not come across you before. And the questions that were being asked There were other people who were trying to answer them, but not with the confidence and certainty that you came across with, which that stands out head and shoulders. Even if I think you'd have said the same stuff, it was the way that you said it. Which is why when you said, you know, you kind of struggled with it with imposter syndrome, it kind of made me wonder why. But when you explained that story, I got it. And so I think one of the things that's really important that you shared is that when you can do really hard things, it kind of puts into perspective other stuff that's actually not that hard, but we tell ourselves it should be. So when it comes to what you've managed to do in terms of building your business, how do you think that it's benefited you, this degree and this ability to do really hard things?
I think it's taught me that I'm going to use ridiculous music analogies all the way through this. I can already tell.
Good.
But when wrong notes are going to happen, and actually what I found is if you play a wrong note with confidence, people might hear it as wrong or it doesn't sound right to them, but because of the confidence with which it was delivered, they assume that it must be part of something that is wholly right. That might be, that's certainly one way of thinking of it. And I tell you another thing, I had this conversation with someone a few weeks back, which was one of the first times I've had this conversation since I was about, I think, middle of COVID. I had this conversation with someone, and I had it again with someone just the other week, and it was the guy I had the conversation with. He said to me, how do you come across so almost fearless when it comes to being successful? Like his assumption was, and he asked me, he was like, genuinely, do you have like a wealthy family that if things go wrong, like you can fall back on them? Is there something else that's there as a bit of a safety net for you that allows you to be so fearless in that regard? And I said, actually, funnily enough, the fearlessness again comes from music, but not necessarily from any confidence gained through music. But I've always thought, because I'm a bit of I love to imagine scenarios and see how I would try and work out how I would cope in such a situation. And again, that has translated over into what I do now with taking other people's marketing problems and then thinking them through and trying to work out how I would deal with them. And one of my favorite examples, and this was when it came up in COVID, and it was that, what would you do if you ever found yourself to be homeless? And my thinking was, and it's probably a little bit naive and a little bit, it's oversimplified, but I'm keeping it that way because I do gain a lot of confidence and fearlessness from it. And it is that I've busked. I've been out on the streets busking. I remember going on holiday to France when I was 18, and I ran out of money, and I was in Bordeaux, and I had my guitar with me, and I walked down to Rue Saint Catherine, the longest shopping street in Europe, and I just started playing, because you don't need a license to busk in Bordeaux. Right. And within 2.5 hours, I'd made 150 euros.
Amazing. Wow.
And it sort of taught me that if I ever found myself in a position where I had nothing, because of music, I always have something.
That's an incredible story.
Even if I can't afford a guitar, I can stand on a corner and sing. Singing is the main thing for me in music. It is the thing I'm best at. I'm operatically trained. I was actually not my main teacher, but my sort of second singing teacher was actually the same singing teacher that taught Ed Sheeran how to sing.
Wow.
So that was quite fun. I've only had a few lessons with him, but he was really important for me, and he was my singing teacher's teacher. And yeah, so I've just always known that even in the worst case scenario, and now don't get me wrong, this is why I said it's oversimplified, a little bit naive. There's a hell of a lot of ways that you can end up homeless. There's a hell of a lot of things that can go wrong, a hell of a lot of other things that can happen. I'm not pretending that those issues aren't there to deal with, but there's definitely a confidence to be gained out of knowing that I can stand on a corner and sing, and I can quite literally sing for my supper, and there's a confidence that comes from that.
I think that's awesome, but what strikes me from what you've said over and above that is that no matter what, you'll figure it out. You'll utilize what skills you have and what you know and put them to the best use that you can see in that situation. And that obviously lends itself incredibly well to marketing, because it's a changing arena. And I'm guessing that the clients that ask you to work with them are just from a vast array of different backgrounds and have different wants and needs. And I'm assuming that it also has helped you with understanding how people work more. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I moved into marketing when I moved back up to Rosendale, just north of Manchester, which is where I'm originally from. And I joined a tech startup. The founder was exceptionally smart tech guy. I don't know why I said was, still is. But his second language, English. He's Greek Cypriot. And he and I met, and he asked if I could help him with the marketing for his business because I had a good understanding of English. Because again, this isn't necessarily music related, although I can make links to it. But I've always loved English. I've always loved language. I would probably say that my nerdiest fascination is etymology, which is such a random and weird thing, and it is just a weird obsession of mine. And so English has always been a thing that I've been really fascinated by, just language in general. And I'd never done marketing before, and I sort of just thought to myself, well, how hard can it be? It's just English and psychology just wrapped up into one, and I love both of those things. They're two things that I am exceptionally fascinated by. Obviously, I found it was a lot harder than that. I'd oversimplified that way too much. But again, it didn't faze me because I knew that I could work it out. And so I did one 12-week boot camp.
Right.
And that's the only formal marketing training I've ever had.
Amazing.
And yet, I've had conversations with people who've been there and done it in business, and very kindly they've said that I'm one of the smartest marketing people they've ever spoken with. Now I take that with pinches of salt. I don't like to think of myself like that in any way, but it's something that I can derive a lot of confidence out of, because if they're saying that when they've been there and done it, then
that's a hell of a compliment.
I should certainly back myself, and I do, and again, I think it comes from that idea of hitting a wrong note, but hitting it with confidence. If I don't know, I will find out, and I will work it out. And again, musical elements in there is I learn a lot of things by ear rather than by tab, or by reading chord sheets, because it's just more interesting that way. And if you do things by ear, you actually begin to understand why it is like that. Because if you just play what you see, then you're only ever going to understand it based on seeing it.
Makes
Whereas
sense. Yeah.
if you learn through listening, you're going to recognize the patterns, you're going to tune yourself in order to problem solve in that way.
Nice.
And so again, I think that feeds nicely back into the fact that me as a person, I spend a lot of my time pacing, which drives my partner nuts. But it'll be because I've got something on my mind, and the only way that I can work it out is if I just think. And
Nice.
the easiest way for me to think is
Move.
pace.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's where that comes from.
And I think what you've shared there is actually really quite powerful, because I'm guessing when you're talking to people about their marketing, what it is that they're trying to do, what is the message that they're trying to get across, you'll be able to hear what's not being said. You'll be able to hear what's underlying what it is that they're trying to get across. And because you can see it from because you're listening, but you can also see things from a different perspective. And I suppose your excellence is that you love solving problems. Then when you combine all of that together, it makes sense. And I'm a great believer in, I think you can tell the difference between the people who are self-taught because they are passionate, which is what you said at the beginning, and are genuinely interested in figuring it all out and making it as excellent as they can, as opposed to somebody who's just gone on a course and like studied the stuff and then tried to put it into practice. Which is why I think you do stand out.
Well, it's something that I came across quite early on in the theatre degree, that one of the most common complaints against the big conservatoires in British theatre, your Guildfords, your Mount Views, etc. And there's nothing, they're all absolutely fantastic, and there's a reason why they're the best of the best. But one of the things that does get leveled at them every now and again is that they just churn out the same people. And now that's a real that's not correct. And there is some incredible people that come out of these places every single year. But it's one of those things that once I'd heard it aimed at theatre schools, I also noticed it with other industries as well. And it shook me that actually sometimes the best people for something are the ones that didn't do it.
Absolutely.
Because they can see things in a way that is completely unique because of the fact they haven't been sort of trained to see. It's the visual thing again. It's about learning through hearing rather than through seeing, and or just by being told. In that most people see, it's like the child's game, like square brick goes into the square hole and circular cylindrical brick goes into the cylindrical hole, etc. It's sort of like that, just on an adult scale.
It is. Right.
And then I think where that sort of really comes into the fore with me is that a lot of people come to me and they go, okay, we've got 8 different social medias, we've got a website, we've got this, we've got that. And it's just like, whoa. You've got so much going on. Why have you got that? So, oh, well, people said we needed social media websites. Like, oh, this is nice. And it's just like, no, whoa. Do the ones that you'll enjoy doing, because that will come across. And if you really, really don't enjoy doing something, I had a conversation with another marketer a few weeks back, and she was really struggling posting on her social media. She has no issue posting for other people, but the minute it comes to posting for herself, serious mental block. And she has all the posts ready. They're there. All she has to do is click the button. And we spent a good hour sort of psychoanalyzing that, which I won't get into here, but we had a lot of fun there. Again, that's just my fascination with psychology coming in. And eventually I just said to her, look, if you're not comfortable posting on social media, don't post on social media. Like, yes, there's problems there. There's issues that are going to arise from that, and you can always get a year down the line and look back, go, imagine where I'd been if only I was confident posting on social media. But I find that such a negative approach to it. If you didn't enjoy it, imagine how miserable you'll be a year later. You might have got further, but you'll have hated
every
having
minute of
to
it.
post all the way.
Yeah.
And so, like, I've very much taken that approach with what I've done with my business. That I've grown almost entirely off of networking, word of mouth, referrals, not through all the things I do every day for every one of my clients: SEO, social media, advertising. I don't do any of it for myself. And it's because I don't enjoy doing it for myself.
Right. So you could understand really where she was coming from. Hence, you probably did have fun with that conversation. And that kind of brings me around nicely to the fact that what you said there is that you have a different way of doing things in a unique way, which brings me around to the conversation that we had about you wearing your hat. Because that, again, and I love it, because there is a reason for it, isn't there?
There is, absolutely. And it's that because I do most of my business development through networking, I want to make sure that when people walk into a room that I'm in, that they know I'm there.
Yeah.
And the hat is a really easy way to do that, right? And it is that, and I've had it where people walk straight up to me at events. I put events on in Manchester, Silicon Mingle Manchester, and people walk straight up to me in those events and just go, spotted you as soon as we walked in.
Amazing.
Saw the hat, came straight over, and
so it's your signature calling card, isn't it?
It is. Everyone
brilliant.
knows it, and I've had so many instances actually where I've not worn a hat and people just have not recognised me, and it's quite
That's the only drawback.
It really made me. I always used to find the idea of Clark Kent and Superman quite ridiculous, because I thought, no way is a pair of glasses enough for people to just go, that's a completely different person. I don't recognize them at all. Yeah. But I had a meeting with a lady, and the next day I came in without a hat on, and I went up to her and I said, hey, about the conversation we had yesterday, this, and she just went, sorry, who are you? And I was just like, we literally had an hour and a half meeting yesterday about your business. And she was like, oh my God, you were just unrecognizable without your hat. And just finally on that, because I do find it really funny, is that a lot of people come to the conclusion that I wear a hat because of a bad hairline or a bad haircut or something like that.
You're going bald.
And I think the Latin is post hoc ergo propter hoc. Because of this, therefore this.
Yeah.
And so people think because of the hairline, that's why I wear the hat.
Yeah.
And it's a complete fallacy. It's
brilliant.
It just so happens to be that I don't have a fantastic hairline and I wear a hat, but the two are not.
They're not right, not the reason for it. Absolutely love that story. But this is, again, that you do something different to other people. And did you consciously do it, or was it just one of those things that you realized was a good marketing tool? Was it a conscious choice?
I think it was a conscious effort. And I say that because it was something that I was doing long before I got into business. Right. It was something I was doing in social situations. It was something I did quite a lot at university as well, that it just became a part of me. Yeah. I was always someone that everyone knew, oh, where's Lewis? Well, just look for the guy in the hat. It'll be Lewis. And I don't really know why that is necessarily, why I thought that, or why I initially did it. But I think I noticed that it worked.
Yeah.
And I just sort of stuck with it. And again, there is a aspect of me that derives quite a bit of confidence from it also.
Right. Nice.
Like I've always, a lot of people have always said that, like guitarists or drummers or any musician really, it doesn't, I don't know why I'm trying to pick an instrument, but any musician can be really, really shy and really struggle with social situations. But the minute you put a comforting object in front of them, completely changes them, and they become some of the most confident people you know. My best example for this is my brother. My brother and I could not be any more different in regards to confidence.
Right.
The things I do in regards to networking, that's my brother's absolute nightmare.
Okay.
But my brother is easily one of the best guitarists I've ever heard. And I've always explained that I can play things that he can't. I can play faster than him, but he can make one note sound better than I can make 100 notes. Like that's the difference. And so he goes from being this super duper shy, will sort of sink into himself in any social situation where he's put on the spot with like a question that he wasn't prepared for or anything like that. But the minute you put a guitar on him, different person, different
Wow.
person, because he can just escape into the guitar. And I think there's a lot of things in theology, in psychology, about just having a comfort item. And so if I know I've always got my hat on, like the hat is always the constant. Like, yes, I'm always wearing shoes. Yes, I'm always wearing
But
other
it's the
clothes, but the uniqueness is the hat, and that's where I can derive a lot of confidence.
Amazing. Absolutely brilliant story. And you've got so much to share in terms of what you're interested in and the different diverse things that you're into, which again, I think this is what makes you stand out head and shoulders above people who've just done a course, because you've just shared the things that you are genuinely interested in, that perhaps people think, well, wow, I didn't expect that, or wow, I didn't expect that, because you obviously do a lot of reading, a lot of learning, a lot of observing, and these are all tools that you can't really teach somebody to do, and you recognize that they help you to be excellent at what you do. So if people did want to look at some of your work or to have a conversation with you, where would they find you? Where do you hang out?
The best thing to do is either contact me on LinkedIn or contact me via email. They're the two easiest ones, and I'm always up for having conversations with new people. I think the event where you and I met, the thing that I was in there looking for, because it was an event where we each got to ask for something, and then people could take that however they wanted. And a lot of people, quite normally, and I'm not, they're doing the correct thing actually. It's me that was being different. But again, I think that's why it also can work, is that everyone else was going, okay, well, I want this person either being really specific or specific to an industry, because that's their audience, that's who they're looking to sell to. So they quite obviously want introductions into that space. I just wanted introductions to interesting people, or to people that I could have a conversation with. And that has led to some amazing conversations. I've got a meeting with a lady next week in Australia, and we are in so many ways exactly the same person, all the same interests, everything. And we just found this out because we'd been introduced by someone else who just said, you're looking for interesting people, here's an interesting person.
Awesome.
And we had this conversation and we were just like, wow, I think we spent about an hour and a half, nearly 2 hours just talking. And I don't even think we talked about business really at all. And I always know that I've had a good meeting if that's happened, because it's meant that we've genuinely connected on some level, found some common ground. And just to put into perspective, like an hour and a half, 2 hour meeting can be quite normal for me, but the meeting started at 11:30 at night, because obviously we
Australian
had
time.
the massive time difference. And
Yeah.
so she'd gotten up super early in the morning for our meeting, and I'd stayed up really late, and it wasn't until 1 a.m. gone 1 a.m. that I went to bed, and I just lay in bed going, that was a really fun conversation. I loved that.
Awesome.
And that's, yeah, so I just
That's
love
the joy of meeting people. But again, this is where, when you're listening to, as you say, interesting people, that is when you're listening to how they speak, the words that they use, and all of this stuff, I guess, is what you're able to then translate into helping other people with their marketing issues. So it's all helping you to be even better at what you do. So we will put your links in the show notes, and if you're watching on YouTube, it will be in the description, folks. So as I usually do, I'm going to ask you my final question, which is this: what is the one thing that you would like people to take away from this podcast episode?
I'd been trying to think about this in the spaces throughout the last nearly 40 minutes, and that went beyond the sort of surface level. Don't let things that you maybe feel embarrassed by, or degrees that might not seem relevant, don't let that hold you back. But I kept feeling like that was too basic. And so I think just trying to take that a little bit further, I think almost everything we do in our day-to-day life, everything we have done, if we think about it and understand it well enough, we can understand how it applies to business. We can understand how it applies to what we want to achieve in life. Like one of the things that comes to mind when I say that is that people always talk about the career ladder, the business ladder, stuff like that, and it's this endless ladder. No one ever tells you where the ladder ends. It's a ladder to infinity, and there is no such thing as an endless ladder. Every ladder ends somewhere, and usually that's depending on the ladder that you want and the ladder you need. And I always have found that I learned very early on that I don't need a ladder that goes too far. I just need it to go to somewhere where I can go, oh, this is nice. Like, I get to have great conversations. I get to do something I enjoy. That's if for whatever reason, just by good fortune or good conversations, I manage to go further than that, great. That I'm not gonna say no, I'm not going any further than this, but I know where my ladder stops. And to be fair, I'm not far from that already, because it's just a place of comfort. And yeah, and I can look back at things in my life and go, I know why I think and feel like that. I know why that's there. And that comes from embarrassing moments. It comes from moments where I've done the wrong thing. And in doing the wrong thing, I've learned a lesson and then applied that to something else. It genuinely, every single thing that you do in your life, there is lessons to be learned from it that you can then use throughout business and everything. And to finish on the surface level one, never be ashamed of your degree.
I love it.
There's always going to be stuff in there that you can take forward with you, no matter what it is. Even if it's just the ability to have a conversation with someone about things relevant to your degree, if you find someone that shares your passion for it. Like, even if that's the only thing you can take away, from it, then that's still a positive. And yeah.
Absolutely awesome. Thank you so much. So, folks, if you have not yet subscribed, please do. If you've enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up, give us a like. If you have found that this is really interesting and you think somebody that you know would benefit from it, please do give them the links as well. And I'm going to leave you with this, as I always do. We only have one body, as far as we know, and one life. Please look after both of them because they are looking after you. Lewis, thank you so much for being my guest. I look forward to speaking to you again really soon. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Bye.